Do we happen to have, speaking of that, the Nancy Pelosi monologue that she tried to explain the inflation bill?
Oh, it's from November of 2021. This one is incredible.
Oh, is it November?
Yeah,
I thought it was from this bill. I just want you to listen and try to tell me what she's talking about when she's discussing a bill that just is in negotiation and passing.
We're sending stuff over to the Senate. Well, most of the product that we've done is now we may have added in the last day or so, and some of what we added is Senate to the bill, like a hearing. Bernie doesn't like hearing. Bernie loves hearing. Manchin doesn't want hearing in the bill and all that stuff. So some is Senate-oriented, and then we have the family medical leave. We figured if they're putting things in, then we can put something in, even if Manchin doesn't like it. So we are getting some bird and privilege. I think mostly we're getting privilege scrub, because privilege scrub is deadly to a bill. Birdable is important. You have to take it out, but privilege violation can take you out.
Sure.
So we're again getting that as we go along as well. But when we pass a bill, then they will see it in its aggregate and make some.
Any concern that any of this is quote messaging, because that they have to take some of those things out regardless, no matter what you send over? You said you weren't going to send a messaging bill.
No, we're not sending a messaging bill, but we want to be sure that what we send is not birdable or bird bath or
bird bath.
Privilege scrub. They're the two
or privilege scrub
exercises we're getting engaged.
Wow. Whew.
Could we just play the 10-year-old again from the BBC?
I think it'll be people will be regarded more as statistics than as actual people.
Wow. Now, either Nancy Pelosi is drinking, which has always been the rumor. She's either hammered. It's Nancy Pelosi. It's hammered time. She's either drinking or she is losing it. And I'm not sure which it is, honestly. These guys that are in Congress, this is the oldest Congress, the oldest representation that we've ever had. There's never been a group of people at this age serving in Washington, D.C., the age of the administration, the age of Congress, the age of Senate. Go home. Go home. It's incredible to me.
There's got to be a rule, right? There's got to be an age limit. Not only do I agree with term limits, but I really think there should be an age limit, because so many of these people are starting to be significantly compromised. Nancy Pelosi is one of them. Joe Biden obviously is another. You've got two of the three most powerful people in the world who are seriously compromised right now, and we're not doing anything about it.
Well, I will tell you that, the average lifespan was in its 30s when we wrote the Constitution. Ben Franklin was probably double the age of the average American. Mm-hmm. And how old was he when he died, Pat? 70?
I think late 70s.
Late 70s. Okay. I remember in my grandfather's era, people, when they started Social Security, it's because the average age for when a man died, was 61. And so they made it at 65. So most people would not get Social Security. But at least you'd have it in case you were an outlier. Well, now people are living to be 80 and 90 years old. And some people are great. I mean, we both know a heart surgeon that is no longer practicing heart surgery, but he's running a global organization. And the guy is 90, Pat, 91, 94. And he is
even older than that.
He's sharper than I am.
Yeah, I think he's 96.
He's sharper than I am. So I hate to say that you have an age limit, but you should have common sense and decency, and your family should have common decency. We all know when our parents and grandparents are just not as strong as they used to be. And we certainly know when they're just incapable of doing things. These people, if they had to drive themselves, I would bet you a lot of the people in Congress that are of her age would have their keys taken away from them, but they don't drive anymore.
Yep. It looks like Franklin was 84.
Yeah, 84.
When he died.
84. And he was at the Constitutional Convention.
Right.
He was still brokering deals.
Yeah.
He was in a great deal of pain at the time. But he wouldn't take morphine because he said it would, or opium, he said because it would addle your brain. And he wanted to remain sharp.
Isn't one of the problems that you're talking about with the age thing, Glenn, like a bigger issue with just the size and scope of government? Because in theory, right, voters, the reason why Nancy Pelosi is in our lives is because the representatives of some blue district keep voting her in. They have the opportunity to select someone younger and more coherent. They just choose not to.
Correct.
Which is not necessarily, I don't think, against what the founders wanted, right? They didn't care if individual districts made bad decisions. I mean, they wanted them to make good decisions, but if an individual district selects as their representative someone who the rest of the country doesn't like, that's in theory fine. The problem is that these people wind up running our lives. If they didn't have all this power when they got to Washington, which they weren't supposed to have, this wouldn't be a problem. It becomes a problem for everyone because Nancy Pelosi has so much of an effect on our day-to-day lives, and she obviously is either drunk or incoherent all the time.
And they thought that the election process would preclude lifetime terms for these people. I don't think they envisioned somebody being elected 30 times in Congress. I mean, come on.
First of all, because it was a pain in the ass. It was such a pain in the ass. That's why they put Washington where it is. It was a swamp. It was mosquito-ridden. It was at a time where you could get malaria from mosquitoes. So they knew nobody wanted to go, and it wasn't a full-time job. You had other full-time jobs. So you were like, let's get the business done. I got to go back to work. So they would only meet for a couple of months every year. So it wasn't the way it is now. And also, I go back to America the Beautiful. One of my favorite lines is, more than self, their country loved. Joe Biden does not care. He is building a Biden empire and a Biden cash machine. And I really don't think he loves the country more than himself. And that is the case with a lot of these people. And they may look at you and say, how dare you say that? But they've convinced themselves that that is true. And they've said, well, if I'm not doing it, who would? We've got to change the country. We've got to do this. But they're enriching themselves. This is so corrupt. Nancy Pelosi is so corrupt. Joe Biden is so corrupt. Do you really think they care about you and your community if you're struggling? I.e., the new bill that just was passed to reduce inflation that's going to do anything but. And it's a tax that begins at $30,000. So you're making $30,000 a year. Next year, your taxes are going up. Is that more than self their country loved? Nancy Pelosi announcing she's going to Taiwan when we don't do that. You can go to Taiwan, but you don't, in her position, announce it weeks ahead. You say, I'm going on an Asian tour, and then quietly you go. And then when you're done, you announce it as you're leaving. That's the way we always do it. But she doesn't love the country as much as she loves herself. Or she was drunk, or she's just incompetent. Which one is the best? These people should be shamed into retirement. Shame on you for you're not clear enough. I know if I'm not clear enough, I would never come on the air because it would be irresponsible of me. They don't seem to care about it. The question is why? And then the real important question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue to vote for, I don't care if it's Republican, Independent, I don't care if it's the guy I absolutely love. If Mike Lee, for instance, is starting to slip, I'd be the first one to say, Mike, I don't want to lose this seat, but you got to go. You got to let somebody else that understands at least today's world and is thinking about that, not just thinking about trying to make it through a speech.